Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by just officially welcoming everyone. Welcome, Sawadee Kap, welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see all of you guys here this morning. This is actually the third day of a 5-day course, and on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, we have regular classes where students come in for those. So when I'm teaching the 5-day courses or any of the other retreats or anything like that, the people who come in on Sundays and Wednesdays and Saturdays just come in and join for what it is that we're doing in our class. So I know some of you guys are probably here just for the morning, perhaps, and that's fine. You guys can come and go as you please. And then there's other people here that are studying in a 5-day course, learning the teachings of the Buddha. You're welcome to stick around if you like. We have all different kinds of things planned. We're going to start our morning with some meditation that I'll guide you guys in. Then after our meditation, we'll move into sharing this topic of the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots. This is where the Buddha helps you to understand these 3 high-level problems that are in the unenlightened mind, and then how to actually fix them and how to resolve them so that you can move to this enlightened mental state where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, the shyness, the resentment, the jealousy, the boredom, the loneliness. All of that is eliminated from the mind by training the mind. So if you would like to stick around and learn some of those teachings, this topic of the 3 poisons or 3 unwholesome roots after our meditation is going to help you understand what's causing these difficulties in the mind so that you can actually solve them. And then we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and I'm going to teach what's called the 5 precepts. The 5 precepts are 5 individual decisions that you can make either wisely or unwisely. And depending on what decisions you make is going to depend on the outcome that you experience, whether you experience wholesome outcomes or unwholesome outcomes. Some people think that the Buddha taught no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, no intoxicants, but he actually didn't teach that. This sounds like rules. It sounds like commandments. It sounds like black and white. The Buddha didn't actually teach that way. So when I teach, I use the original words of the Buddha so you can actually see what did he say during his lifetime, and you can see that he didn't teach rules and commandments. He didn't teach a bunch of beliefs that if you believe a bunch of things, then something good happens when you die. Instead, he's teaching you how to train your mind to experience this enlightened mental state by awakening to the wisdom that it takes to be able to get to that enlightened mental state. And I'm going to be sharing that this morning in some of the teachings that we're going to do after meditation. Then in the afternoon, after our lunch break, I'm going to be teaching walking meditation. This is really good if you have an overactive mind or if you have anxiety or stress in the mind. And the last thing you're thinking about is sitting down to actually meditate. You've got too much energy in the body or in the mind. This is a really good meditation for you as well. So you guys can stick around if you like, but I know that you guys might be needing to leave at different times for things that you need to be doing. So feel free to come and go as you please. Here at the temple, there's a bathroom in the very back of the room, the very last door. You're welcome to use that at any point. There's even bathrooms outside the main classroom here. If you follow the signs around, you'll see where the main bathrooms are for the temple. And we even have water that our students provide, so you're welcome to help yourself to any water if you'd like to stay refreshed. So I'm going to guide you guys in meditation to get started. So once again, welcome to those of you guys that are here. Welcome to everyone online who's joining us. We can all be meditating together here in a little bit. So what we do in order to meditate is we first chant in order to ease the mind into meditation. Some of you guys have these chanting sheets. If you'd like to get one, they're over there on the table. They're laminated daily chants. They're in the Pali language. This is a language that was used to capture the original teachings of the Buddha. These chants, they're not rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship or anything like that. It's not prayer. But when you read the chants, you're going to see the English version of them. You'll see a lot of admiration and respect for the Buddha. I suspect the Buddha didn't actually even teach these chants. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha doesn't walk around and teach people to chant things to him in order to honor him and respect him. He would have had eliminated the ego or arrogance or boastfulness, so he wouldn't have taught people to chant these things to him. But if you learned from a teacher who didn't want anything from you and didn't have any expectations of you, and they helped you move from that sadness and anger and frustration to to this peace and calm, this serenity and contentedness with joy, where your mind's permanently in that mental state, you'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person. So I suspect his students, either during his life or after his death, having this respect and gratitude for him, probably created these chants as a way to honor and respect him. But you shouldn't think of these as a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. What you're doing is you're easing the mind into meditation. You're developing some awareness of the mind and awareness of breath to ease the mind into meditation. There's nothing mystical or magical about these chants. They used chanting during the lifetime of the Buddha in order to commit the teachings to memory, because everything he taught was oral. So he would teach for a period of time, and then every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would chant as a way to commit the teachings to memory so that they can then practice the teachings. They weren't written down until after his death. So chanting started from the Buddha just as a way to remember the teachings. But nowadays, some people think these are rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship. Some people might think there's some mystical or magical benefit here. There's none of that. It really just helps to ease the mind into meditation so you can get more benefit out of the meditation by having awareness of the mind, getting some invigoration of the mind, attentiveness or alertness of the mind, and some awareness of the breath so that you can start getting benefit in the meditation right away when you start going into meditation. So as I chant these, you guys are welcome to chant along if you like. Once we're starting the meditation, I'm going to be providing some guidance to help you guys understand how to meditate, why we're actually meditating. Then there'll be a period of time where it'll just be quiet and we'll just be meditating. I'm sure you'll hear an occasional dog or maybe a bird chirping or maybe a car going by, but all these things are impermanent. You'll hear during the meditation how you can cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. So we'll go through a period of time where it'll just be quiet and we'll be meditating. Those of us here and everyone online will just be meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some chanting. The same exact chanting that we went into meditation with, we'll come out with that same chanting. And then I'm going to transition over and teach you guys this topic of the 3 poisons, how to transform the mind away from these pollutions that the Buddha discovered and moving it towards enlightenment so that you can experience the brightness and the radiance of the enlightened mind. So if you'd like to join for meditation, people usually will meditate in one of 4 positions. They're seated, lying, standing, and walking positions, because your body can't permanently be in the same position. So most of you guys I see are sitting. So if you're on the floor, you might just sit with your legs lightly crossed. Some people like to put their legs off the mat because this gets the hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles and allows the circulation to flow. But you would like to just have your legs lightly crossed. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put that into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could do this, but it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees or their palms up or just resting their hands comfortably in the lap. And the same thing goes for those of you guys in chairs. You might just sit comfortably with your feet either flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, and then putting your hands and arms wherever they feel comfortable for you. Again, it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way because that's not possible. Not everyone's going to find the same thing to be comfortable. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. It also helps you to breathe into the lungs and out of the lungs where your sternum's up and your shoulders back. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be erect where the sternum's up and the shoulders are back. And this helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. And it also helps the mind stay attentive and alert. So as I mentioned, I'm going to ease us into meditation with chanting, which you guys are welcome to join along. Then I'll be back with some guidance to help you in meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Potang Makewanang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakewata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Iti pisu bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vicacaranang sammuno Sakato rokavitu anutero purisa Dhammasati satatawa manusanang Oto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, establishing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There is nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Potang Mahakawanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sampuno Sakato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. So this meditation is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a primary form of training that the Buddha used in addition to other things in order to train his mind to get to this enlightened mental state. The enlightened mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy permanently. It's physically impossible for an enlightened being to get angry or frustrated or irritated or any other discontent feeling. So meditation is an important training that we use in order to move the mind to that enlightened mental state, but there's other things you would need as well. So that's why, in addition to learning meditation for someone on the path to enlightenment, they're also learning other teachings to help you understand the world around you. Because when you lack wisdom, you're going to naturally make unwise decisions that's going to produce unwholesome results for you. But as you learn and you grow and you develop and you investigate the teachings of the Buddha, you learn them, you reflect on them to independently verify them, that they're true, and then you start practicing his teachings, you'll see the truth for yourself, that your mind's becoming more and more peaceful, more and more joyful. The teachings of the Buddha, it's not about believing a bunch of things and then hoping that something good happens when you die. That's not what he actually did. He also didn't teach a bunch of rules and commandments that if everybody follows these rules, then the world will become a peaceful place. He didn't do that either. So he didn't explain the way the world should be. He explained the way the world is. So what you're learning on the path to enlightenment is you're learning the way the world is. This is referred to as the natural laws of existence. You're learning about these natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of these natural laws or not. Just like the natural law of gravity affected you, whether you're aware of it or not, when you were growing up, and you made unwise decisions that produced unwholesome results, when you gained wisdom of that natural law of gravity, you started making wiser decisions that produced better results for you. Because when you lacked wisdom, you struggled, you had difficulties, you fell down, you hit your head, you bumped your elbow, you broke open your knees, or a number of things, right? You broke your toys. We all did this growing up, because we were unaware of this natural law of gravity. And it was affecting us whether we were aware of it or not. But slowly but surely, we started gaining wisdom of that natural law, and then we started making wiser decisions. Now we can ride bicycles, we can climb ladders, we can get on airplanes and travel all over the world, because our mind is fully awake to this natural law of gravity, meaning we have full wisdom of this natural law of gravity. And now we can navigate the world with that natural law in mind, and we'll naturally make wiser decisions that produce wholesome results for us. Well, there's these natural laws that the Buddha taught that you can independently verify for yourself. You can learn them, you can examine them, you can reflect on them to independently verify them, and you can practice them in order to see the truth for yourself, that what he taught is 100% true. And as you apply his tools and techniques and understanding these natural laws, you'll notice that you'll be making wiser decisions, and then you'll experience more wholesome outcomes. And there you won't struggle and have difficulties any longer. So an enlightened being, they're not struggling through life. There are certain challenges that you might experience in life as an enlightened being, but you'll apply wisdom to address that. You're not struggling with sadness and anger and frustration and irritability. You get to the point where you're not even in a bad mood anymore. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships really blossom because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships. You'll have focus, you'll have clarity, you'll have concentration and deep memory. And the reason why is because you've uprooted certain pollution in the mind that are causing you to struggle and have difficulties. And this is what you can learn if you'd like to learn the three poisons, also referred to as the three unwholesome roots or the three fires. These are the three high-level things that are in the mind that are causing you to experience these discontent feelings. So what the Buddha did is he figured out how to train his own mind to get to this enlightened mental state, and then he shared what he took for him to get to this enlightened mental state for 45 years, from the age of 35 to the age of 80 when he died. He shared with students how he got to this peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. And one of the things a student would need to understand is the three poisons or the three unwholesome roots or the three fires. This is where you understand the three high-level things that are causing difficulties in the mind, and you'll understand solutions to these problems as well. There's a core central teaching that the Buddha taught. It's called the Eightfold Path. All of his other teachings plug into that and helping you to understand how to move your mind to this enlightened mental state. You can think about the Eightfold Path as these 8 factors or these 8 dials. If you had a speaker system and you had 8 dials and you were tweaking these dials to get a better and better quality of sound out of your speakers, the Eightfold Path is the same way. As you're learning this and you're dialing it in closer and closer to your life, your mind starts performing better and better and better because you're eradicating these pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. So at a high level, we refer to them as the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires. But they go deeper than this in something that's called the 10 fetters. These are the 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered that's keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. The reason why he called it a fetter is because during ancient times, they would put a shackle and a chain and a ball around your ankle to keep you trapped as a prisoner. This is what's called a fetter. They didn't have cells necessarily to keep people in jail cells. They would put this fetter on your ankle and it would keep you trapped in a certain area. So the 10 fetters are 10 pollutions that are in the mind that are keeping you trapped in this unenlightened state and continuing to experience discontent feelings over and over and over. All the anger and jealousy, resentment, the boredom, the loneliness, the shyness, all those discontent feelings, the guilt, the shame, the fear, the stress, the anxiety. You don't actually have to live with these feelings. Oftentimes people think this is normal, and it is for an unenlightened being, that a human being is going to experience those things. But you can get to the point where you eradicate the causes and conditions that are producing these feelings in your mind, and you can get to the peace and the joy where your mind is just always peaceful and joyful. So I'm going to explain these 3 poisons to you, or these 3 unwholesome roots, or these 3 fires, and then I'm going to help you understand how to eradicate them, which are certain pieces of the Eightfold Path. But you would need to know the entire Eightfold Path to eradicate these pollutions from the mind. So it's understanding these and uprooting them and eradicating them from the mind that you'll actually experience the peace and the joy. Every single being that has ever been born is unenlightened. That's the whole reason why individuals are being reborn. So as you understand these three poisons, you'll be able to hear what it is that I'm sharing with you, and you'll be able to relate it to your life, because you shouldn't believe anything that I say. You shouldn't believe anything that's written in books. You shouldn't believe anything related to the teachings of the Buddha, because with belief, you don't know what's true and you don't know what's false. In order to get to enlightenment, you need to cultivate wisdom. So when you hear a teacher teach, the way I'm going to teach you guys these three poisons, as I'm teaching them, you can reflect on your own direct experiences in life and ask yourself, am I explaining what you experience in life? Because what I'm sharing with you is every unenlightened being is going to have these three poisons in their mind. If you're experiencing anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, any of these kind of feelings like sorrow and misery, despair, any of these and others, then your mind is unenlightened, and it's because of these three poisons. So when I'm sharing with you what these are, you can relate it directly to your life, so you're not believing me, that you can listen to what I'm sharing with you and try to determine, is what I'm sharing with you the truth? Is this what you're experiencing? And then you'll know the truth about these three poisons and how they're causing difficulties in your life. Because I'm going to explain to you what they are. I'm going to explain to you the symptoms that you experience as a result of having these three poisons. And then I'm going to explain to you how to eliminate them from the mind, the certain tools and techniques that the Buddha shared in order to eliminate them. And then as we go, you can ask questions. Here at the temple, we have microphones in these white bowls. If you get a microphone, there's a gray switch on the front. You just press the button. You just wait a second or two. There's some lights that come on, and then you hold it up to your chin. We'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll also be able to hear you online too, because we have many people joining us online for our class. And for those of you guys that are online, you can ask questions as well. You can put those into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and then open up your mic, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple. So let me share with you first what these three poisons are, kind of just as a high level. They're called the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots, or the three fires. They're also known as defilements or taints or pollutions of mind. This is a description of what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. And when you make decisions through these three unwholesome roots, it's going to produce unwholesome results in your life. This is referred to as the natural law of karma, or some people might have referred to it as karma. Karma is the Sanskrit language, and people refer to that natural law through using the word karma. The original teachings of the Buddha are using the Pali language, so we use the word karma if you study the original teachings of the Buddha. If this translated to one English word, I would just use that word, because it'd be so much easier for people to understand. This natural law of karma is cause and effect, or action and result. It's the result of your decisions. That when you make a certain decision in the world, if it's a wise decision based in wholesomeness, it will produce wholesome results in your life. But if you make unwise decisions based in unwholesome things, then it's going to produce unwholesome results. So the unenlightened mind is making decisions through these unwholesome roots, and this is why you experience unwholesome results. The natural law of karma, it isn't punishments and rewards. It's not mystical or magical. There's no being who's overseeing this natural law and determining who gets punished and who gets rewarded. It's not even about who's to blame or who's at fault. It's literally cause and effect, or action and result. For example, everything you experience in life is a result of your decisions. The reason why you're here listening to me is a result of your decisions. Nobody forced you or controlled you to be here. This is your decisions. And now you're learning the teachings of the Buddha, and this is the results that you're experiencing. Your hairstyle, your clothes, where you choose to live, the friends that you include in your life, everything is a result of your decisions. So when you make decisions through these three unwholesome roots, then you'll experience this unwholesome karma. There are these unwholesome results that are coming back to you as a result of making decisions through craving, anger, and this ignorance, or this unknowing of true reality. But when you can get to the wholesome roots and you can make decisions through wholesomeness, then you'll experience wholesome karma, or wholesome results. This will make a lot more sense as we go. The three unwholesome roots provides a clear description of the problems in the unenlightened mind, and how through eliminating them or solving them or applying an antidote to uproot these out of the mind, then you'll experience the peace and the joy of the enlightened mind. It's the 10 fetters that explain the problems in detail, but the Buddha teaches in these layers. When you learn his very first teaching, which I taught yesterday, it's called the Four Noble Truths. This is giving you kind of a window into the unenlightened mind. In 4 simple statements, the Buddha explains the problem in the unenlightened mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And that's usually how you kind of enter into learning the teachings of the Buddha, is through understanding the Four Noble Truths. And if you'd like to learn that, I have it in books and audiobooks and videos and podcasts. You can learn it even though I just taught it yesterday. And once you understand the Four Noble Truths, then you go deeper into the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires, because it broadens your understanding of what's going on in the unenlightened mind, and it also deepens your understanding. And then once you understand that, you go deeper into what's called the 10 fetters. And this is a full description of exactly what's happening in the unenlightened mind and why it's experiencing the various struggles and difficulties that it's experiencing. And as you're uprooting these out of the mind, we refer to these as the wholesome roots or antidotes. So if we're talking about them as the 3 poisons, applying the solutions would be to antidote those poisons. Or if we're talking about them as the 3 unwholesome roots, if we're uprooting the unwholesome roots and bringing in the wholesome roots, that's the solution, the wholesome roots. Or if we're talking about them as 3 fires that are burning in the mind, we talk about extinguishing these fires by applying the solution or the remedy. So this is a little bit of what they are from a real high level. And now I'm going to introduce you to all 3 of them from a high level. Then we'll go in and talk about each one in detail. And there I'll be talking about what they are, how you experience symptoms from them, and then I'll talk about the solutions. But here, let me just introduce you to these at a high level. There's called craving, anger, and ignorance, or some people refer to it as greed, hatred, and delusion. There's different ways of referring to this depending on how people translate it. You might even hear people refer to it as desire, ill will, or confusion. What craving or greed is, this is the mind's longing and yearning, the chasing after selfish desires, wanting things to be permanently pleasing. The mind is longing and yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection, thinking that something outside of you is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. It's like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner. The mind thinks that this is going to provide lasting satisfaction, so it chases after it. It might be a new pair of shoes, it might be new jewelry, it might be a boyfriend or a girlfriend, it might be a job or some other thing, maybe a car or a motorbike or a house. The mind thinks, if I can just get that thing, everything in my life will be perfect. I will feel whole. I will feel complete. So the mind chases after this thing, and it's called craving, desire, attachment. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you're like, oh yes, brand new pair of shoes. Oh, I got to have those. Oh, everything will be so perfect if I can get those new shoes, or that new mobile phone, or that new computer, or that new video game. The mind thinks something outside of you is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So it chases after it. And if it gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, or some other painful feeling. So the mind is going up and down throughout life based on your cravings, desires, attachments, right? So this is what we call craving. It's the selfish desire, a longing, yearning, chasing after something, thinking that something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. And if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings. But if you don't get what you want, these painful feelings can arise, like anger. That's the next one. The anger is like this bitterness, this hostility, this aggression. The mind thinks in the unenlightened state that those painful feelings that you're experiencing, the anger and the sadness and the frustration, the mind thinks that it's coming from something external, like a certain person or a certain situation. You might think your mom is causing you to be angry, or your brother or your sister or your boss or your coworkers. So if you think that they're the ones who are causing you to be angry, what you'll do is you'll push them away. you'll push these people away, thinking that this is going to solve the problem. Or you might push the situation away, thinking that's going to solve the problem. But it doesn't solve the problem because that's not actually the real cause. It's not your mom or your dad or your brothers or your sisters or something external that's causing you to be angry. It's your craving, desire, attachment. It's your longing, your yearning. And if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings. And if you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings. So by pushing people away out of your life, it never solves the problem. That's why you keep getting irritated and annoyed over and over and over and over again. Or the other thing you might do when this anger is arising and you don't feel comfortable with those painful feelings and you're maybe blaming it on something external is you might be bitter and harsh and hostile with people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And now the aggression and the hostility arises, this animosity arises through your intentions, speech, and actions, and it damages your relationships. Or the third thing you might do when you don't understand that your mind is causing your own anger and your own painful feelings is you might put your expectations on somebody and try to control them to do things your way. The mind thinks in the unenlightened state, due to its lack of wisdom, that if I can just get people to do things my way, everything would be perfect in the world. But what the mind's doing is it's trying to satisfy its cravings. It's trying to get things the way that it wants because it knows if I get things the way I want, I'll get those pleasant feelings. I'll get that happiness and excitement. But then that fades away. It's only temporary, that happiness and excitement, because you're basing it on some impermanent condition. So when this anger is arising and the mind misunderstands what the problem is, then you'll either push people away or you'll push the situation away. This is called aversion. Or you'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile towards people, and then they'll choose to leave out of your life. Or you'll put your expectations on people and try to control them to do things your way. And the number of people you can spend time with in the world becomes fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer. As your expectations grow and the things that you want other people to do, the number of people who can satisfy that for you becomes fewer and fewer and fewer. So you end up with a lot of broken relationships and difficulties and challenges interacting in the world. And where all of this is coming from, where the craving and anger is coming from, is what we refer to as ignorance. Nowadays, this is used as kind of like a derogatory word. A Buddha, an enlightened being, wouldn't talk in a derogatory or demeaning or degrading way. So I like to use the phrase, the unknowing of true reality. The unenlightened mind is confused. It has misunderstanding. It has a lack of wisdom is what's going on. Because the mind lacks wisdom, it truly believes that somebody else is causing you to be angry. The mind firmly believes this, that something external is causing you to be angry or frustrated or bitter or harsh. You might feel justified in your anger. But when you peer into this and you look more closely, you can see that it's your own cravings that are causing your mind to be discontent. And you're experiencing this anger, and you're experiencing this pushing away, this bitterness and hostility, and putting expectations on people. So as long as the mind has this unknowing of true reality, or this confusion or this misunderstanding, craving and anger will continue to exist in your mind. It's not until you awaken to the wisdom to see the truth that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings that you can actually solve it. If you continue to go around the world thinking that other people are causing you to be angry, then you'll continue to blame others and you'll push people away. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile and put your expectations on people, and you'll never solve the problem. You'll just stay stuck in this constant cycle of being angry and upset and frustrated and irritated and annoyed and all these other discontent feelings over and over and over again because you haven't yet understood the true problem. So it's acquiring wisdom that's going to help you to now understand that craving and anger is the problem, so that then you can eradicate that from the mind. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality, it's really because of ignorance, because of the unknowing of true reality. Craving and anger continues to exist in the mind. And that's why when you come to the temple or you read books, you're not believing the teachings, because belief isn't going to get you to a solution. You can't believe your way to eliminating and eradicating these out of the mind. You need to arise wisdom to understand what the problems are. And then when you understand the problem, then you can understand the solution implement that solution, and now you actually see real results. This is why when you learn and study the teachings of the Buddha and you practice them, you'll experience real results. You'll see more peace and more joy coming into the mind because you're finally understanding the problem, you're finally understanding the solution and applying that solution, and then you actually see the real results in your life. So this is a high-level understanding of what craving, anger, and ignorance is, the three poisons or the three unwholesome roots or the three fires. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and talk about each one in detail, a little bit more detail about each one, but then I'm going to really focus on the solutions and explaining to you what an individual is doing on the path to enlightenment to eradicate these from the mind, because that's where you see the real freedom from these strong feelings. We refer to enlightenment as liberation, where you liberate the mind from these strong feelings, because it's no fun being angry and sad and frustrated and sorrowful, feeling misery and despair. But you can liberate the mind from this. You can get freedom from this, but you need to understand what the problem is, and you need to be able to see the symptoms that you're experiencing because of this, and then you need to see the solutions and understand the solutions to implement. So a little bit more about this craving, desire, attachment. These are also wants, expectations, longing, yearning, grasping or holding on to things, wanting things to be a certain way. If the mind gets what it wants, then it gets those pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But the problem is that you can't always get what you want. It's not possible because you live in an impermanent world. Things are constantly changing. You can't permanently get everything that you want. So because of that, your mind's going to sometimes end up in these painful feelings of the anger and the sadness and the frustration. And even if you get what you want, and you get happy, that happiness is temporary. It arises, it changes, and it fades away. When you get that brand new car, you're happy at first, but then the happiness fades away. When you get the brand new shoes or brand new jewelry, you're happy at first, but then it fades away. When you get the brand new boyfriend or the brand new girlfriend, you get really happy and excited at first, but then it fades away. That's because the mind is basing its inner feelings in this craving, desire, attachment, this condition of craving, desire, attachment. So for example, if you have craving for it to be sunny outside, when you see that it's sunny outside, you'll get happy. You'll get excited. You'll get elated. Yay, we can go outside. We can go hiking. We can go play. Oh, it's going to be so fun. Let's go outside. You formed your inner feeling of happiness and excitement based on the sun. But the sun isn't permanent. So that means your happiness isn't permanent in the unenlightened state because you formed your inner feeling based on an impermanent condition, a temporary condition. So if you form your inner feelings based on an impermanent condition like the sun, that means when it starts raining, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So if you wake up in the morning and you get so excited because you're going to go hiking, and then you go into the bathroom to take a shower and you come out and it's raining, you'll be frustrated and agitated or annoyed, where an enlightened being doesn't experience that. You're already happy before you ever wake up in the morning. And then when you see it's sunny outside, it's like, sweet, I'll go outside and go hiking. I'll spend time with my friends. You go take a shower, you come back and it's raining. Okay, no worries. I'll just stay home and read a book, or I'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll invite my friends over. We can have food. But since you didn't form your inner feeling based on the sun, when the sun changes, you won't get upset. You won't get frustrated. And it's not just happening with something like the sun. For example, if your bank account balance is a certain balance, you'll be happy. You'll be excited. You'll be elated. But then when your bank account balance goes down, you'll be sad, you'll be frustrated, you'll be irritated. Or if mom or dad do this, you'll be happy, you'll be excited. But then if they do this, you'll be sad or frustrated. So you can take what I'm sharing with you and you can look at your own life. You can see that your mind is craving permanence. You're longing, you're yearning, you're wanting things to be a certain way. And you're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong, right? This is every unenlightened mind is experiencing this. It's just that the mind lacks wisdom to understand what's truly happening. So I'm just here to help you understand what's truly happening so you can see the problem for yourself. Look at a situation that you've had recently where you've been angry or frustrated or agitated. It might have been this morning or yesterday or last week. There was something your mind wanted. You were longing and yearning for it. You were craving some kind of permanence. You were wanting something to be a certain way. And if you got that, you would have got happy. You would have got excited. But because you didn't get it, your mind was angry or sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed. You can look at every situation you've ever had in your life where you've been angry or frustrated or irritated. There was something your mind wanted and you didn't get it. And then you ended up angry or sad or frustrated. And at that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else. You might have been blaming mom or dad or brothers or sisters or friends or coworkers, or maybe that cashier at the store, or maybe somebody at your hotel or something like that. But if you look at this with fresh eyes and new wisdom, you'll be able to see that it's your mind causing your own anger, your own frustration, that there was something you wanted. And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But because your mind didn't get what it wanted, it got these painful feelings of anger, sadness, and frustration. And even if you would have got what you wanted, you would have only been happy temporarily. And ultimately, your mind would have ended back up in dissatisfaction. So as long as there's craving in the mind, where the mind's longing, yearning, and chasing after things, you're going to sometimes get what you want, and you're going to sometimes get happy. But then that's going to fade away, and you're going to end up in the sadness again. Or you're going to be having this longing, yearning, and chasing after things. And then if you get what you, or if you don't get what you want, your mind's going to end up in the painful feelings. So if you think about when you've had a boyfriend or girlfriend, if you got with a new boyfriend or girlfriend, you guys first came together, you might have gotten really happy. You might have got really excited because they're showing you affection. You guys are going out to the movies. You're going to dinner. Maybe you're going to the park. Maybe you're having great conversations. Maybe you're having intimate contact with each other. Wow, so much pleasure, right? But then at some point during the relationship ended. And then you felt angry. You felt frustrated. You felt agitated or annoyed. You might have felt lonely. You might have felt bored. This is because the mind's craving for this relationship to be permanent, when in reality, everything around you is impermanent. The mind is craving for this relationship to be permanent, but it wasn't permanent. It never was permanent. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, one of you would have most likely died first, which means your relationship is impermanent. So as long as the mind's craving permanence, you're going to end up in this discontent feelings. The same thing is happening at a funeral. Sometimes when somebody dies, like grandma or grandpa or mom or dad or brothers, sisters, and friends, you might think that the sadness that you're experiencing is because of your love, but it's not actually the love that's causing your sadness or your sorrow. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. That doesn't actually cause sadness. What's causing the sadness is the mind's holding on to grandma and grandpa, or mom or dad, or brothers and sisters, wanting them to be permanent. When they're alive, you're happy because you're getting what you want. But when they die, the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't understand this because they've died. And now you're experiencing this impermanence where the mind's not getting what it wants. It's not getting the permanence. Or say you get a brand new car. When you first get a brand new car, you might get all these pleasant feelings because you got this brand new car. But now when the car gets parked at a store, you go inside and you come out and you see a scratch, you might get angry. You might get frustrated or agitated. It's not the scratch that's causing you to be angry. And it's not the person who caused the scratch that is causing the anger. What's causing the anger is the craving, the desire, wanting this car to be permanently beautiful. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because it's wise to not scratch somebody's car. It'd be wonderful if nobody ever scratched your car. But that's not the world we live in. Remember, the Buddha is describing the way the world is. He's explaining to you that everything around you is impermanent. You're going to get a scratch on your car. And even if you don't get a scratch, the paint's going to fade because of the sun. The upholstery is going to get ripped. The tires are going to need to be changed. The window washers are going to need to be changed. This is all impermanence. This car is going to constantly change. But if you're craving for the car to be permanently beautiful, when it starts changing, you won't like that. Right? So this is what the mind's doing in the unenlightened state is it's craving permanence. It's wanting things to be a certain way. And if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings. But if you don't get what you want, you get these painful feelings. The way that you solve this craving, desire, attachment, this longing, yearning, is you practice breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity. These are the two solutions that directly remedy the craving, desire, attachment. Because craving, desire, attachment, the mind's longing and yearning, it's chasing after things. So when you're focused on the breath, like we just did with meditation, and your mind moves off the breath, you're cutting that off and letting it go and bringing the mind back to the breath. You're gaining this discipline and this control of the mind. You're developing this mindfulness or awareness of mind and this concentration. Because now when you're in the mall and you're walking down the mall and you see that brand new pair of shoes in the window and you notice with your mindfulness that the mind is longing, yearning, and like, oh, I just can't wait to get those shoes. Oh, yes, 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 those shoes are going to be so wonderful. If you see your mind longing and yearning like that, you can cut it off and let it go. Of course, you need a new pair of shoes at some point, but you might ask yourself, do I want these new pair of shoes or do I need these new pair of shoes? Because sometimes you might be buying a new pair of shoes and you got 30 pairs at home, right? How many pairs can we wear at one time, right? Sometimes what we do when we have cravings, desires, attachments is we have this unquenchable thirst where we're just chasing after more clothes, more shoes, more jewelry, more money, more friends, chasing. It's like an unquenchable thirst. There's never enough. So you're going to need to ask yourself, is this a need, something that I need, or is this something that I want? Because it's very expensive to have craving. You can put yourself into debt if your mind's chasing after all these different things. So if you're practicing meditation regularly, you'll develop your mindfulness or awareness of mind and your concentration to be focused. And then when you see your mind longing, yearning for things, you know you're going to just get temporary happiness, which is ultimately displeasing. So you can cut that off and you can let it go. Or if you are longing, yearning after something, and you're noticing the anger and the frustration starting to arise, if you're training in meditation, you can cut that off and let it go because you can discipline your mind and control your mind. When your mind's sad and frustrated and irritated and annoyed and all these other discontent feelings, you don't have control over your mind. The mind's uncontrolled, it's undisciplined. So the meditation is there to consistently train your mind so that you can build the discipline and the control. So you can have the mindfulness and concentration and the ability to cut things off and let it go, restraining the mind. This will help you to be able to eliminate your discontent feelings. Then when your mind is having craving, desire, attachment, it tends to be somewhat selfish. That it's not interested in sharing, that it's not interested in giving and sharing. We're typically taught as children to share, and we usually share our toys and we share things around us. But then as we get older, we forget about these things and our mind starts craving and holding on to things. We're no longer interested in sharing. We want everything to be permanently pleasing and self-satisfying. That's what the craving is, that the mind chases after its selfish desires. It's disinterested in giving and sharing with others. So the Buddha taught to practice generosity, where you're giving and sharing your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources more than is strictly required without any expectation of anything in return. This is what's going to help you eliminate your selfish desires, where you realize this interconnectivity between all of us, and that by giving and sharing, it actually helps everybody. And it helps you too, because it's enhancing your mind. It's helping you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. Because with craving, desire, attachment, you'll hold on to things really tight. My mobile phone, my car, my computer, my money, my food, my mom. You won't want to let go. The mind's going to be holding on tightly. But when you practice generosity, where you're giving and sharing your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources without any expectation of anything in return, you'll train your mind to let go. So if you're walking into a store, for example, and you notice there's somebody behind you, and you're opening the door for yourself, you could stand to the side and let them go in. This is practicing generosity. You're sharing your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources more than is strictly required, but remember, without any expectation of anything in return, not even a thank you. Because if you're standing there holding the door, expecting somebody to say thank you, and they don't say thank you, you'll get frustrated because you didn't get what you wanted. You wanted a thank you, right? And you didn't get that. So you're going to be frustrated or annoyed that they didn't say thank you. So when you're practicing generosity, it's without any expectation of anything in return, right? You're just doing it because you know it's enhancing your mind, helping you eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So practicing generosity will be really helpful for you to let go, where you can train your mind to not hold on to things tightly with these cravings, desires, attachments. So do you guys have any questions on this first poison or this first unwholesome root or this first fire? Remember, you can use the microphones here to ask questions. And if you get a microphone, you can take it back to your seat with you and just keep it, because then you can share it around to the people around you. And then for those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Rex.
You mentioned a difference between needs and wants.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, is there a difference between the level of desire? You know, if you just want something a little bit, you know, you would think it's acceptable to have certain needs, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So is it acceptable to have certain wants, minor wants, versus, you know, burning desire? That's pretty extreme.
Yeah, so there's a whole spectrum of craving, desire, attachment, from just the simple, like, I want to get some chocolate from 7-Eleven to, you know, I want my mom to be alive for permanently, right? I want her to be healthy, you know, long term. And your feelings are going to be at different heights depending on the depth of your craving. So if you go into the 7-Eleven and you want some chocolate and they don't have it, you might be annoyed or disappointed, right? But if you want your mom to be alive and she dies, you could be utterly grieving and sad for months and years, right? This is depending on how deeply held the craving is. So any kind of want or expectation or longing and yearning, it's always going to produce craving, desire, or it's always going to produce discontentedness. You're always going to experience some discontent feeling, no matter what, whether it's the slightest little want, like a piece of chocolate, or something more significant. It's going to produce some kind of discontentedness. And that's the problem, is the craving, desire, attachment. The mind's chasing after something. We usually describe it in the extreme, but there's these lighter versions too that produce lighter feelings. Like you just kind of dislike that person that you just met. And I just kind of don't like him. There's this irritation in the mind, because it's just a small little want. But then there's the significant ones. So it's not about what's acceptable. The Buddha didn't give things that this is acceptable and this isn't acceptable. It's about what is it that your mind, what is it that's going to produce peacefulness in your mind? And if you have any kind of craving, desire, attachment, even the slightest little one, it's going to produce some discontentedness in the mind. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't even have the slightest ickiness in the mind. That the mind's just radiant and bright and joyful all the time. You're not experiencing even the slightest little ickiness, because you've eliminated all cravings 100%, even the slightest little minimal ones. But what you would like to do, rather than chasing after wants or having even the slightest want, you would like to fulfill your needs. That's where you can pursue things as a goal, as an objective, or an interest. So for example, you need a job. Well, probably not anymore, but at one point you needed a job, right? But when you chase after a job, that's where you're going to be discontent. Because say you see this advertisement for a new job and it's got the perfect salary, the perfect location, the perfect company, the perfect job title, the perfect skills, the perfect coworkers. Now your mind chases after that. You're longing, yearning. You hurry up and you rush and you submit your CV or your resume. You go into the interview. You're calling them to check in to see if you've got the job, and you're longing, yearning for this particular job. This is the mind's craving, desire, attachment. And if you get that job, you'll be so excited. You'll be so excited you got that new job. But then when you start the job 6 months later, a year later, 3 years later, you're going to be bored. You're going to feel unmotivated. Or say that you even enjoy this job for 3 years. Let's say you get laid off, or you get fired, or the company goes out of business and you can't work there anymore. Because you got so excited when you first got the job, When that condition no longer exists because it's changed now, you'll be sad or frustrated or angry or some other discontent feeling. So if you chase after this job, you're setting yourself up to fail. You're sabotaging your mind. Whereas if you pursue this job as a goal, as an objective or an interest where you just gradually work towards it, you submit your resume, you maybe send a letter or an email, whatever they do nowadays, I don't know. Maybe call up the company, I don't know. You gradually work towards this job. And if you get it, wonderful. Got a new job. Let's go in there and do a good job. Didn't get it? Okay, that's fine too. You can still maintain your happiness, still maintain your joy. So what the enlightened mind is doing is it's no longer basing its inner feelings on some condition. In the unenlightened state, with craving, desire, attachment, you can only be happy if I get the job. If I don't get the job, I'm going to be angry and irritated and frustrated. So the amount of time that you can be happy is actually very narrow in the unenlightened state because you have to have all your cravings fulfilled. And that's the only time you can be happy. But in the enlightened state, when you're pursuing your needs as a goal, objective, or interest, you can be happy all the time. You can have unconditioned happiness. So it's a matter of pursuing your needs as goals, objectives, or interests rather than chasing after your wants and your expectations. And you can only be happy in that situation. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So I'm going to move on to the next one, which is anger. Because with these cravings, as you guys are hearing, if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings. But if you don't get what you want, you get the painful feelings. And one of those painful feelings is the anger, the bitterness, the hostility that arises. So when the mind is experiencing these cravings, desires, attachments, it can only be happy when it gets what it wants. But when it doesn't get what it wants, it experiences these painful feelings. Everything from the small just being uncomfortable all the way up to hostility and aggression and animosity. And this is oftentimes coming through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And this is where an individual might push people away or push the situation away, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. But that doesn't actually solve the problem because you just get angry or irritated about something else. It's only a matter of time. Because you can look at situations where you've pushed people away or you've pushed situations away. It didn't solve the problem. That's why you still get angry, because that person wasn't the problem. If that person was the problem or that situation was the problem, when you push them away, you wouldn't get angry or upset anymore. The real problem that's being caused is this craving, desire, attachment. That's what's causing the discontentedness. The problem is the discontentedness. The cause of that problem is the craving, desire, attachment. So when this anger is arising, the mind is uncomfortable with those painful feelings. So it will tend to push people away or push the situation away. Or you'll become bitter, harsh, and hostile through your intentions, speech, and actions. And that doesn't solve the problem because the person usually gets angry themselves and they go away from you. You might have ended the relationship by being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and they don't like the harshness, so they go away from you. Or if you put your expectations on people, trying to control them in order to get your cravings fulfilled, that doesn't solve the problem either because there's 8 billion people in the world and they can't all do things your way. It's just not possible. So as long as you're pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, putting your expectations on people, the number of people that you can spend time with and the amount of time that you're actually happy is less and less and less and less and less because your expectations are growing and the likelihood of you fulfilling all of those becomes less and less and less and less and less. There's fewer and fewer people, fewer and fewer situations where you can actually be happy. This is why people, when they get really old, some people become very grumpy and very irritable because they've got so many expectations in their mind of what they want, right? You don't have to be grumpy when you get old. You can be old and happy. It's possible. You just got to train your mind to eliminate the cravings, desires, attachments, the wants, and the expectations, right? So as long as this craving is in the mind, then the anger is going to arise. And you can eliminate this anger from the mind through practicing loving kindness meditation and then going out into the world and through your intentions, speech, and actions be loving and kind. What loving kindness meditation is essentially rewiring your mind, where right now in the unenlightened state, if you have a certain craving and you get what you want, you get happy. But if you don't get what you want or you disagree with what somebody's doing, your mind goes down this well-worn path of anger. of hostility. It's a well-worn path. It's really easy to go down that path, perhaps, depending on how often you've been angry in the past. It's a well-worn path, and you know where it leads to. It leads to broken relationships. But what you do with loving kindness meditation is you rewire the mind. Instead of going down this path of anger, bitterness, and hostility, you forge this new path of loving kindness, where you have this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And it's going to be challenging to go down that path because that path isn't opened up yet. It's a bunch of bushes, a bunch of branches. You got to get out your machete and you got to break through all these bushes and branches. And as you do, it's going to be challenging. But the more and more you go down this path of loving kindness, that'll be the well-worn path. Where right now with your cravings, if you don't get what you want, you go down this well-worn path of anger. And that might be what people did around you as you were growing up, that when they didn't get what they wanted, they got angry. So you kind of learned how to do that through conforming to what's going on around you. But now if you start working with loving kindness meditation to rewire the mind, now you can go down this path of this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, this active goodwill. And you can understand that these feelings of anger that you're experiencing, mom isn't causing that. Dad isn't causing that. Brothers and sisters aren't causing that. Your boss isn't causing that. It's your own cravings. So rather than being bitter and harsh and hostile with them and damaging your relationships, you learn to be loving and kind and deal with your emotions through training your own mind rather than blaming others for the emotions that you're experiencing. So you can rewire the mind in meditation by using loving kindness meditation, and then you go out into the world and you practice through your intentions, speech, and actions to be loving and kind. This is what I taught yesterday with the Eightfold Path. The Buddha teaches you how to cultivate right intention, right speech, and right actions where it can emanate from loving kindness. But you need this meditation in order to develop the loving kindness in the mind. It's kind of like filling up your gas tank, and then you go out into the world and you practice loving kindness. Sometimes when people are practicing loving kindness meditation, if you've learned this, they think your goal is to change other people. There's nothing on the path to enlightenment to change other people. There's nothing about the Buddhist teachings where you're changing anybody else. You're changing your own mind. It's all about working with your own mind, doing this inner work to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll never hurt ever again. You'll never feel painful mental anguish in the mind. You'll still experience some physical pain here and there, but it'll be very muted. It'll be very minor, but you won't experience any mental anguish in the mind whatsoever. There's no painful feelings. So you can heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But you need to know what's truly hurting you. It's inside your own mind. It's not mom or dad or brothers and sisters or boss or coworkers or friends or anybody else. It's what's going on in your own mind that's causing these painful feelings. So you can go out into the world and be loving and kind with all beings when you eradicate this poison from the mind. Right now, you would probably find that very challenging. There's probably certain people in your life that you have bitterness and hostility towards because in your mind, you firmly believe that they're the ones who are causing your painful feelings, when in reality, they're not. It's the craving, desire, attachment that's causing it. So if you can get to the point where you see more and more clearly that your mind is causing these feelings and you can implement the solutions to fix it, then you'll notice that you can be loving and kind with all beings in the world. And this just takes this inner work, this inner development, this inner growth to evolve as a better and better human being. Just like a lizard evolves, just like the species of a snake or a monkey or some other animal evolves, the human species can evolve to the point where we don't experience anger and sadness and frustration any longer. We can evolve to that higher consciousness, to this enlightened mental state. So any questions on the anger and the solutions to that? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So now the whole reason why all of this is actually happening is because of the third poison, often referred to as ignorance or delusion or confusion or misunderstanding. This is where the mind misunderstands true reality. It doesn't understand the world around it, and it has misperceptions or misunderstandings. It has confusion. It has a lack of wisdom. Like I mentioned, The mind in the unenlightened state will firmly believe that other people are causing you to be angry. We went through life like this for a period of time, right? But when you start peering into the teachings of the Buddha and you don't believe them, and you independently reflect on them to see the truth for yourself through learning, reflecting, and practicing, you can see that your mind is causing your own feelings. But in the unenlightened state, it has this unknowing of true reality, this lack of wisdom. It doesn't understand that. It firmly believes that other people are causing you to be angry. So as long as this ignorance or this lack of wisdom is in the mind, it'll continue to experience this frustration and agitation over and over and over again. So there's a certain aspect of the path to enlightenment where you're intellectually learning teachings, and then you're reflecting on those to independently verify them, and you're practicing the teachings to train the mind and uproot these pollutions out of the mind. And as you do, you acquire wisdom. That's the antidote. That's the solution. That's the wholesome root, is getting to wisdom. Because now with wisdom, you can see the truth for yourself, that it's craving that's causing the problem, and that when this anger arises, you do become bitter and harsh and hostile, and people do choose to go away from you, and this isn't helping you in life. And now with this wisdom of things like the three universal truths, the four noble truths, the eightfold path, the five precepts, the Brahma Viharas, the natural law of Karma, the seven factors of enlightenment, extensive meditation training, and then eliminating the 10 fetters, your mind can move to this enlightened mental state. It's not a 1 week thing. It's not a 1 month thing. It's not even a 1 year thing. It's a life practice. You're developing a life practice where you're gradually training your mind. You're gradually practicing the teachings, and you're gradually experiencing progress. Some people think that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated and instantly got to enlightenment, but this isn't actually true. You know this for yourself. You can independently verify it, because everything you've ever done in life has been gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Whether it's learning how to read, write, and speak English, or some job or occupation that you have, it's been gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Even for native speakers who speak English natively, it was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that we can now talk and communicate and speak in English, right? So everything you've ever done has been gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So the same thing is true with enlightenment. You need to gradually awaken to the wisdom. Yes, there's meditation that's part of that training, but there's all these other aspects of the learning that you need to learn in order to awaken the mind to this wisdom of the natural laws of existence. And once you acquire this wisdom and you start applying the tools and techniques in your life, this is where you see the real results. Because it's no fun to be angry. It takes a lot of time. You get really exhausted. Have you ever been so angry you got exhausted afterwards? You got tired, right? It's really exhausting to carry around all that anger and frustration. You can get liberated from that, where you can have the joy and the peace, but you need the wisdom to be able to accomplish that. And that's where the Buddha's teachings come in, that you're learning them, you're reflecting on them, and you're practicing them. You'll never see anywhere in the original teachings of the Buddha where he says, just believe me, just believe me, just believe me. No, he says just the opposite. He says, come investigate my teachings. Come examine them. Because he knows if you examine his teachings and you investigate them close enough, you're going to see the truth. And then you're going to gradually move your mind to this enlightened mental state. So the Buddha doesn't use guilt, shame, or fear in order to try to convince someone to learn his teachings. He doesn't even try to convince you to learn his teachings. He's already peaceful. He's already joyful. He's just helping those people with a sincere interest to learn and practice his teachings. He's just helping you. If you have an interest to learn, the teachings are here to help you. You can get all the access to the books, the videos, the podcasts, the classes, the courses, the retreats. It's all available at no cost. Because I know that if you investigate these teachings close enough, you'll get to enlightenment. If you investigate them and examine them and reflect on them and practice them, you'll experience this peaceful and joyful mental state. But you need to decide you're done with the anger. You're done with the frustration. You're done hurting. You're tired of that, right? You would like to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt again. And then you can experience the peace and joy, the blossoming and the relationships of both personal and professional that can really be at ease, where you don't have bitterness and hostility in your relationships anymore. And it just takes gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress to acquire the wisdom, apply that in your life, and see the actual results. So any questions on this ignorance or unknowing of true reality? No questions? Okay. So now just to summarize what I've been sharing with you guys is there's these three poisons, these three unwholesome roots, or these three fires. They're referred to as craving, anger, and ignorance, but I like to use the unknowing of true reality. That's really the best way to think about it, that the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. Right? You just don't understand what you don't understand. You don't even know that you're causing your own anger. But when you peer into it and you look at it, you can acquire the wisdom and see the truth for yourself. Some people refer to this as greed, hatred, and delusion, or desire, ill will, and confusion. These are the three unwholesome roots. But then the antidotes, or the wholesome roots, are practicing generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. That's what's going to transform the mind. When you're making decisions through craving, anger, and ignorance, it's going to produce unwholesome results. When you make selfish decisions or you make decisions through your anger or your ignorance, it's going to produce unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. But when you make decisions through generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom, it will produce wholesome results. That if you understand what generosity is with no expectation of anything in return, if you understand loving kindness, which is this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, and if you understand the wisdom of the teachings of the Buddha, the natural laws, you can arise more and more wise decisions in your life to experience wholesome results. But right now, you might not know how to do that. And that's where someone gets on the path to enlightenment and they gradually learn to develop their mind and arise these wholesome qualities in the mind. So through eradicating the unwholesome roots and making decisions through the wholesome roots, you can eliminate 100% of all your discontent feelings. It can all be eradicated. Okay? So this is the three poisons or the three unwholesome roots. It's basically about 10:30. What I'm going to do is take a break so that you guys can stretch, take a break, use the restroom, get some refreshments, maybe talk to each other if you'd like. And if you'd like to come back after the break, I'm going to start class again at 11 o'clock, give you guys a nice 25-minute break. And then when we come back, I'm going to be sharing the 5 precepts, which are 5 impactful decisions that you can make in a wise way that's going to lead to wholesome results. Or they could be made in unwise ways that lead to unwholesome results. So this is where you're going to get some exposure to the natural law of karma itself. I'm going to use the original words of the Buddha so you can see what he taught on this topic. And then I'm going to apply it to things that you encounter on a day-to-day basis today, because his teachings are timeless. The teachings of the Buddha aren't rooted in a particular culture. They're actually timeless because they're explaining these natural laws. So you can learn what the Buddha taught on these 5 precepts and you can apply it to today, and you can see how it directly applies to the things you're experiencing today. So if you'd like to come back, I'll be here sharing with you guys starting at 11. If you're not coming back, if this was enough for you to learn today, that's wonderful. Pleased to have met you and welcome you into our class. If you'd like to learn more, either here at the temple or online, you can access all the resources through our website, where you can be learning here in Thailand, or even as you travel around the world, you can tune into our live streams or get our recordings or our books and all that other stuff. So if I don't see you after the break, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. And if I see you after the break, still have a lovely and wonderful day. We'll see you next time. Okay? Sawadee krap. Yep.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.